All right, let's talk about going gradeless assessment. So, I think that after you kind of establish what your skills are, the next big task is going to be to look at your assessments. This was probably the one that I struggled with the most because for me, a lot of my assessments were designed with kind of a number point scale or a traditional rubric scale involved. And when I started looking at the actual skills that I wanted my students to take away with them, I realized that sometimes the assignments I was having were ones that I just like loved because they were fun and I felt like the kids for in my head I felt like the kids got value out of it, but if I looked at it, it didn't actually assess any key skills I wanted them to take away. And so I think the hardest part about the assessment strategy is that some of the assessments that you've held close and dearly and have loved for years are going to need to go away. And that is a really, really tough thing as an educator is to take an assessment that you've spent a lot of time on that you think is amazing. But I think at the core of it, sometimes our assessments don't line up with our kind of core principles, core values, core ideas. So when we come up with our skills list, once you've got that kind of solidified down and you're feeling really good about it, next you're going to look at your assessments. So remember with Gradeless, it doesn't mean I'm not assessing. It just means that I'm assessing in a different way. So what you're going to look at for each assessment, you're going to say, one, does it complement one of or more of the key skills? Ideally, assessments should look at more than one key skill at a time because then you're getting a little bit more value or a little bit of an opportunity for kids to show off at a little bit more of what they know. And then the second thing you're going to look at then is how can I effectively use my time to share feedback with the kids if I can no longer give you a 3 out of 4, or if I can no longer give you a level 4, what do I do? A couple of things you can do to try if you're already on a rubric skill. What you can do is you can kind of, I've moved towards like a single point rubric. So I'll have one kind of definition based on the achieving scale, and then I'll kind of have like a sliding bar at the top going from beginning towards mastering, and then basically then you can put a little line or a check mark about where the kids are on that sliding scale. What's really really effective actually is before kids having them handed in, have them self-reflect and put themselves on the scale, and then you put yourself on the scale, so that helps calibrate those students into kind of figuring out for self-assessment where they are, where they're at. Another thing you can do is you can look at it and say, do I need to mark it, or can they mark it themselves, or can a peer mark it? So for example, a lot of times for like quick check-ins, exit tickets, quizzes, those kinds of things, I don't actually mark them. I have the students mark them. So I'll put up an exemplar. We'll talk about strengths and weaknesses of that exemplar. Remember, don't always show perfect exemplars. Finding issues or errors is a really, really important skill for students. So sometimes I'll put up an exemplar purposely that's not perfect, and we'll digest and kind of figure out what they did really well, what the exemplar is missing, and then they can then compare what their work is compared to the exemplar and compared to kind of what the goal is of the whole class, and then come together on that one. The other one is if you are in a standard test format. Typically, I've moved over to like written comments. So, for example, I'll give comments on things that I think they should keep doing and things that they need to improve on. Be aware that you don't want to overload them with comments. So, I try to keep it to maximum 3 a page. And I always try to find on a test something a student can do better because they can always improve and they can always do better. Even if they're like awesome and mastering everything, they can always improve somewhere. So I always try to find a place where they can be even better. And then what I do is after I give them their comments back, I give them this test evaluation page. So on this test evaluation page, you'll basically see the skills that I had looked for. This is an old skills list. I've modified it since then. And then they have like their skill improvement log. And then once they have shown kind of what for skills they've done and where they need to improve, then they can come back to me and we can retest or re-look at some of those skills that they hadn't performed on a test. Or the other option too, that's a really, really great one is kind of like a learning log. So if you have a test or a style of assignment that you do repetitively. So for example, I'll do Ashley does her homework and makes a bunch of mistakes and have the students find the mistakes. And so then because that assignment comes up over and over again, and that can have like a progression of skills over time, then what we can do is we can have just kind of one, like what went well, what I'm going to improve on, and just have that cover page go for that same assignment over and over and over again as you go. So when it comes to assessments for Gradeless, you're going to have to change your focus from this is a number to how do I give you feedback.